Okay, so if I understood it correctly, you were working on paragraph 6 last night.
Yeah. You had great progress on one paragraph.
Okay. All right. And the discussion was sort of about the timeline, right? Okay, I don't know.
30 years.
Yeah.
That was something we were struggling with.
This period in here.
Yeah, we were given an overview to Bruce, and then we were the ones who used the overview.
Right. Yeah, the 30 years or the 1 hour with the beast. Comes from Revelation 17, I think it is. It speaks about the 1 hour with the beast, which is on the same basis he uses a timeline in chapter 8, I think, of a half hour being 15 years, 1 hour would be 30 years.
The problem we were having is fitting it into the 50 years.
Right.
Assumed.
Yeah.
It's not, nothing's written in stone.
All coming from the 1600 furlongs.
Right. So here, we have 10 years, that Christ returns, you have the resurrection and judgment. The next 10 years is the Armageddon, and that takes you down to basically where the construction of the temple begins, the cleaning up of the lands. And the proclamation of the everlasting gospel possibly fits into the 30-year period. So you have 10 and 10 and 30, which will give you the 50 years.
It's not in addition to the 40 years.
No.
Okay, that's
No, it fits in the 40 years. The 40 years would be made up of the 30 years and the 10 years, this period in here. After the resurrection and judgment. So it is supposed. I mean, it's all a little bit of speculation on it.
So one part in Eureka there, Brother Thomas indicates that the proclamation is a 10-year period followed by a 40-year judgment period. And that kind of does that fit in with what we have there? Well?
Yeah, how that would work out, it's hard to say. I think in that one we had the proclamation going into the 30-year period, but it could just as easily fit in the other years.
Again, he says only his suggestion.
Exactly.
Definite.
Yeah. So you've basically covered this paragraph then, 6. You look at the Valley of Achor slide there. Okay, maybe just take a look at that. He talks about this great work consuming considerable time and great manifestation of almighty power. It consumed 40 years of days in the days of old, or 1,600 furlongs of time from the institution of the Passover in Egypt to its celebration in the Valley of Achor under Joshua, which was its typical fulfillment in the kingdom of God. And it's interesting that the Valley of Achor being brought up there. Of course, that was where Achan transgressed and was punished, and it was called, it means a door of hope. And this is a view towards Jericho being down here from halfway on the way to Jerusalem. And so the view towards Jericho along Wadi Kelt, which is supposed to be the same as the Valley of Achor, about 2/3 of the way down from Jerusalem. Wadi Kelt is the canyon here with trees. It's kind of lined with trees, this one down here, up on its rim and size, and is proximate to the fault line that lies from the Jordan Valley near Jericho to Jerusalem that could form the pathway for the march of the Rainbow Angel to Jerusalem. So if you look at that fault line, what we're looking here, it kind of follows this Wadi Kelt up here to Jerusalem. So it's kind of an interesting, typical similarity, I guess, that the Valley of Acor was the place where they kind of entered the land in the days of old, and could possibly be the same route that is followed by Christ and the saints after the earthquake, of course, which opens this all up into a very wide, gradual upsloping valley. Not the canyon kind of thing that it appears here. It becomes like a door of hope, as you go up to Jerusalem. Okay.
That location would be close to where Moses died, and it's
Across just across the valley.
and it's also thought that's where Elijah was taken in the chariot
Yeah,
to the well, so there's a lot of significance.
a lot of significance in that area. That's right. Yeah, so it is kind of interesting. Gordon?
Would that be where the water flows down from the temple, or is that,
It'd be proximate to that, yeah.
does that lead into the Dead Sea?
Yeah, Dead Sea just to the right. And of course it also is the Jordan Valley, which would, in the time of, after the earthquake and the upheaval of the country where the landscape has changed. We got that here too, actually. Let me just go down this. Here you have the changes in the landscape, which it's lifted. So here you have it going, the Wadi Kelt would probably be more on this side. Jericho is here. You can see my arrow there, there's Jericho. There's Zion, and Wadi Kelt is a little bit to the north of Jericho, so it might be a little bit more along the northern line of where the water would come down. All being drastically changed, of course, the landscape being drastically changed. So the Wadi Kelt, as it is known today, won't exist anymore, but I'm talking about the area. Okay, so I saw it. Yes, Gordon?
Just judging by that picture, it almost looks like the crest of the earth is like folded up like an accordion, sort of, and needs to be spread out.
Yeah. It is a very deep crevice, and there's some structures along the side of it. There's a monastery along the side here, a little further down. And of course, right in about here is the Mount of Transfiguration, or not the Mount of Temptation, I should say, where they feel the Mount of Temptation was right about that area there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's all a very significant area. And then, of course, Christ would after that would have wandered through all this land in the 40 days, or another 40 day period. He wandered through this country.
So it really is a piece of country that represents everything that needs to be covered over and destroyed.
Yeah. That's right.
Jesus was doing reconnaissance for future work.
Yes. Getting to know the area.
It is bleak.
Yeah. Bleak and treacherous. Of course, that was where the old road was, too, up to Jerusalem, and it was fraught with brickings and thieves and everything else.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so.
Keep a goat alive.
They try. That's where all the Bedouins are located along there, and you see them in various goats and stuff.
Well, maybe only a goat.
Yeah.
One goat.
Yeah.
For 20 acres.
Okay, so paragraph 7, the final one here, the 1600 furlongs then equals the square of the period of both judgment and regeneration. So he says, understanding these things, the reader will perceive the meaning of the words of the oracle delivered to the prophet in answer to his petition. The Eternal Spirit replied, saying to him, as the petitioner for Israel, according to the days of thy coming out of the land of Egypt will I show unto him marvelous things. That's from Micah 7:15. That is, as the coming out of Egypt consumed 40 years, So in causing Israel to feed in Bashan and Gilead, it will consume 40 years in the marvelous works whereby it shall be effected. Thus it is that Micah testifies to the length of the period, apocalyptically represented by the 1600 furlongs. These are the square of 40. And this is the number of years during which the saints will be executing the judgment written as symbolized not only in this 14th chapter, but also in the 16th, from the 17th verse to the end, in the whole of the 18th and 19th chapters, and the 20th chapter to the 4th verse inclusive. Those are all sections of the Revelations that deal with this same topic, is what he's talking about there. These 40 years are included in Daniel's time of the end, which is the period of transformation and transition, styled by Jesus the regeneration, Matthew 19:28. Maybe we'll just look at that. Matthew 19, verse 28. Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, maybe we'll just get back here a little bit for connection. Christ said it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. And he said, well, who then can be saved? And he said, with men this is impossible. With God all things are possible. And Peter says, behold, we have forsaken all and have followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 tribes, judging the 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So he said that is styled by Jesus, the regeneration in that passage, and by Peter. He calls it the times of the restitution of all things, which the deity has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets from the aeon, or beginning of the course of things instituted through Moses. And that's from Acts 3, verse 21. He says, He'll send Jesus Christ, which before was preached unto you, whom the heaven must receive, until times of restitution of all things, which God has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets, since the world began, in the world of the aeon that he speaks of there being the world of the Mosaic dispensation. For Moses truly said unto his fathers, A prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brethren like unto me. Him shall ye hear in all things, and whatsoever he shall say unto you. In these 40 years, the present constitution of the world is abolished. At the end of them, there will be no armies and navies. These destructive agents will cease to exist. The vintage will have cut them off and disbanded them as useless and demoralizing encumbrances upon society. War will be studied no more, and a general disarmament, which is now impossible, will be enforced by the all-conquering King of the Jews, then become the light of the Gentiles and the salvation of the Father to the ends of the earth. Isaiah 49 and 6. He said, It is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Prophetically, of course, referring to the Redeemer of Israel and his Holy One, Jesus Christ. Babylon will have fallen with its papacy, all the powers, temporal and spiritual, which now sustain it. They will all have licked the dust like a serpent, and the deity will have performed the truth to Jacob and the mercy to Abraham, which he swore to the fathers from the days of old. Micah 7:20. That's another passage from Micah. The other one is 7:15. This one is 7:20. Also, we'll just read that. 15. Talks about, according to the days of thy coming out of the land of Egypt, will I show unto marvelous things. The nations shall see and be confounded in all their might. They shall lay their hand upon their mouth, their ears shall be deaf, they shall lick the dust like a serpent. They shall move out of their holes like worms of the earth. They shall be afraid of the Lord our God, and shall fear because of thee. Who is a God like unto thee, that pardoneth iniquity and passeth by the transgression of the remnant of his heritage? He retaineth not his anger forever, because he delighteth in mercy. He will turn again. He will have compassion upon us. He will subdue our iniquities. And thou wilt cast all their sins into the depths of the sea. Thou wilt perform the truth to Jacob and the mercy to Abraham, which thou hast sworn unto our fathers from the days of old. So those verses are all very, very well connected under the same subject material. Verse 15, or even before that, on to the end of the chapter here, Micah. So just in summary there, the 1600 furlongs is thereby deciphered to indicate the 40-year period, 40 being the square of 1600, from the judgment on the nations through to the regeneration of remaining peoples and the institution of the millennial kingdom of God upon earth.
Does that squaring indicate a complete, like if it was linear, it wouldn't be as meaningful as a square, which indicates a complete covering of the area, doesn't it?
Yeah. And as he pointed out, it's used more than here in Scripture. Square, value of the square. 144,000, 12 in the square of 12.
It brings to mind, I guess, another question that we had last week. It wasn't, I guess, really a question. I think we're all on the same page, but it was brought up that I think it's in Zechariah where it talks about that he will save the camps of Judah first and Israel. Mm-hmm. Whether that's talking about literal, the 2 tribes, and then the literal 10 tribes, or whether that was talking about Judah being the redeemed, and Israel being the natural Jews.
There's another, I think, explanation too, where Judas indicates those who are in the land at the time, the Jews that are in the land at the time of Christ's return. They're kind of the political Jews, and then the other Israel being those scattered throughout the world.
Right.
And those who are in the land and who are, they are driven from Jerusalem but are brought back and then are used, as it were, as
battle axe.
Well, they are, but they're used to bring their brethren out of the rest of. They're sent into the world to be, I guess, catalyst is the term I'm trying with Elijah, as a catalyst to bring their brethren back,
right,
the scattered ones.
It seems to be that Brother Thomas seemed to think that when talking about Judah and Israel, that it was talking about the natural Jews, and not including the redeemed.
And today, those who are in the land are generally deemed to be the tribes of Judah, even by those who have settled the land.
I was just trying to, I'm not sure of this now, I should know this, but wasn't the encampment of Judah the first to set forward when the nation moved? We just read it.
Center of the East, you were the center of the East.
Yeah, they were the East.
I think so.
Yeah, so they're again, there's kind of a fitting, they go first, again, and it's as it was in the days of coming out of the land of Egypt. There it is again,
Right.
Another parallel. And also, Joshua was from the tribe of Judah, the one of the faithful spies. And the other was from Ephraim, which would represent the 10 tribes.
That's chapter.
About
Numbers chapter 2. Is it?
no, it's further on.
What is it? You're just trying to find that Joshua and Caleb were from?
Yeah, Joshua was from Judah, and Caleb was from Ephraim.
Other than like chapter 12 or
And he's called Boshia, and then it says he called Boshia the son of Nun Joshua, or Joshua.
What is this?
Yeah, he called the chapter 12.
13.
Or 13?
13?
Verse 6. It's Caleb of Judah.
Is it? Okay.
And was it Judah that went out? For sure?
First? Yeah. It's Judah that was
Yeah.
first.
Judah is the current Zebulun. Is that right out?
Yeah.
Yeah, when the sun died,
Joshua's from Ephraim.
east of
That went first. I always thought it was the one with the Dan tribe.
Yeah.
First.
Look to see who has a Pentateuch clause in that.
But these are just like, they're not really coincidences, they're kind of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, echoes or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Spiritual types.
Yeah.
Then this went,
Which one is first? This one?
then,
I always thought it was Dan
No.
first, but it's
Judah, Judah first.
Hmm? See what I mean?
See the bottom that shows you.
I'm not looking at, I mean, Dan starts at Ephraim, Reuben,
No.
and Judah. But it's backwards? right?
Yeah, this is the cloud.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So there's all, there's good traits and similarities all through this. Kind of, mesh and interweave and some of that. So this is just what I showed you here, I'm not sure. Oh, I think this was the,
Thank you.
try that again here. Not sure what happened there. Try that again. See if we can repeat it for you. Yeah. So here's the kind of the publishers kind of encapsulate this at the end of the portion here, how the soul is divided up. Christ returns in a Jubilee year, and the millennium commences 50 years later, and this period of 50 years is divided into the 10 years of personal national judgment culminating in Armageddon, which is, we showed that at the beginning of that chart. And then you have the 40 years of restoration and rebuilding of Israel. This period divided into the conversion of Judah and the ultimatum to the nations. A period of 10 years and then 30 years subjection of Catholic countries. So you have 10 years, 10 years, and 30 years.
So that, in number 2, there's 40 years, and that's divided.
That's divided into this
Yeah.
suggested period of 10 years and then the 30 years.
So that's the proclamation, that's the ultimatum to the nations.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
come now or you will
We
be.
suggest that comes in that interim 10 years. Yeah. So the millennium comprises 1,000 years of peace. It will commence when all nations have been brought into subjection to Christ. And Israel would have been completely restored, and the temple will be then open for worship for the first time. Gordon?
Notice you got a link there to the Jubilee year. Is there
Yeah.
any way of knowing
Well,
exactly
you know,
when that is?
Talk to Buddy Backer.
let's see here. If you calculate the jubilees or the 50-year cycles, the first jubilee according to the Hebrew way of reckoning, it was the year 2448 or 1272 before Christ. The Hebrew year 1988 or 5748 marked the 650-year cycle, or Jubilee. The 67th will begin approximately the Hebrew year 5798 or 2038. According to that reckoning, and it's, I guess there's always a question of when it began, but they believe it began, in that year 1272 BC, after they came out of the land of Egypt and celebrated the first Jubilee.
That 6-6 is interesting. Just looking at it. Man, that's hard to see.
Do you want to go through this whole section here? Like I had read it out before once, but maybe somewhere here, I don't know.
Sure, it doesn't matter.
The Hebrew calendar is a lunar solar calendar used today predominantly for Jewish religious observances. It determines the dates for Jewish holidays and the appropriate public reading of the Torah portions. And those portions date to commemorate the death of a relative, and daily psalm reading, among many ceremonial uses. In Israel, it is the official calendar for civil purposes and provides a time frame for agriculture. Years are counted since the creation of the world, which is assumed to have taken place by them in the autumn of 3760 BCE. In that year, after less than a week belonging to AM1, AM2 started. AM being now Monday, the year of the world. In the year CE, or after Christ, 2006, we witnessed the start of the Hebrew year 5767. Because of the roughly 11-day difference between 12 lunar months and one solar year, the length of the Hebrew calendar year varies in the repeating 19-year Metonic cycle of 235 lunar months, with the intercalary month added according to defined rules every 2 or 3 years for a total of 7 times per 19 years. Seasonal references in the Hebrew calendar reflect its development in the region east of the Mediterranean and the times and climate of the Northern Hemisphere. The Hebrew calendar year is longer by about 6 minutes and 25 plus 25 57 seconds than the present day mean solar year, so that every 224 years the Hebrew calendar will fall a full day behind the modern solar year, and about every 231 years it will fall a full day behind the Gregorian calendar year. The present counting method for years The present counting method for years use the Anamanda epoch, or the year of the world in Hebrew, from the creation of the world, abbreviated AM, and also referred to as the Hebrew era. The Hebrew year 5771, which is a leap year, began on 9th September 2010 and ended on 28th September 2011. The Hebrew year 5772 began at sunset on 28th of September 2011, will end 16th September 2012. And then on that basis, using that basis for the calculation of Jubilees from when they say it began, 1272 before Christ, or in the common year, then the 67th cycle will begin 5798. There's lots of latitude, we can't get, I think there's a lesson out of that, maybe we just can't get too dogmatic about specific years and times and say, well, AD 2000 was the year 6000, not necessarily so. There's latitude.
There's lots of discussion.
Yeah. Okay, so that completes that section, and that completes chapter 14. And so we next go on to the next section, which is chapter 15, and that's the little open scroll. And it has 10 sections. The first one being the sign in heaven, And the second one talking about the glassy sea. These are all subject matters that will be covered. The third section, the conquerors on the glassy sea. The fourth section, the Song of Moses. The fifth section talks about the Song of the Lamb. The sixth section is the phrase after these things. And the seventh section talks about the seven angels of the nave. The eighth section, the seven golden vials. The ninth section is talks about the nave filled with smoke. And the 10th section is no entrance into the nave till the end. Now, this is still basically the same, covering the same kind of time period that we have been covering in the 14th chapter. It's the same subject material. So the little open scroll division, there's a little bit of an analysis of the little open scroll. It comprehends or comprises the seventh seal, the seventh trumpet, the seventh vial, and the seven thunders, from the manifestation of Christ and his brethren as the Lamb in the midst of the 144,000 redeemed from the earth, to the full establishment of the millennial throne and kingdom of David upon the utter destruction of Daniel's dreadful and terrible fourth beast, and the subjection of the first three, of the lion, the bear, and the leopard. And it belongs to the days of the voice of the seventh trumpet, which are inclusive of the time of the end, from AD 1792, or the French Revolution, to the end of the 1,600 furlongs, or the 40 years. AD, he called it 1908. That was to him, that was the ultimate D-Day kind of thing. We know that has to be changed a little bit, or thereabouts. And I think that's the important word there, or thereabouts. The events of this chapter are parallel with the seventh trumpet. So I think that pretty much tells us the time period we're dealing with is what we've been talking about so far. We have the translation. I don't know whether we'll maybe want to Eureka right through. That's the whole chapter. Maybe we'll
repeat it anyway.
It'll be repeated anyway before refer back to it. So, because this is what he's covering. He talks about the glassy sea and the seven angels having the seven last plagues. So all those phrases will be incorporated in this subject material. Pardon?
Might be a little bit of a digression, but one of the first screens you put up, there was a mention of Russia coming down against Turkey, and I wondered if you had just a little watch on there, because he's dealing with some of that.
Okay. Just go on. I think I've got it probably under here. So the latest one would be the 25th.
Yeah.
This one right here.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. The event that he deals with here is Mitt Romney has been dragged into the Obama open row, or open row, after describing Russia as America's #1 geopolitical foe in an interview with CNN. The Republican frontrunner was reacting to comments made by President Obama in South Korea on Monday. "This is my last election," Obama was recorded as saying. "After my election, I have more flexibility. I understand. I will transmit this information to Vladimir." Mr. Medvedev, Russia's outgoing president, responded. That's what he responded. "I understand. I will transmit this information to Vladimir," and that was didn't think that was being recorded. The microphone was still on and running.
Open mic.
Yeah. Responded. Neither Medvedev nor Obama intended for the comments to be made public. Mitt Romney's political camp was quick to jump on the gap, calling it a sign that Obama intends to campaign on one policy but implement another. Russia continues to support Syria, supports Iran, has fought us with crippling sanctions. We wanted to have the world put in place against Iran. Russia is not a friendly character on the world stage. Mitt Romney then went further, describing the nation as America's number one foe. This is without question our number one geopolitical foe, he says. They fight every cause for the world's worst actors. The idea that he has more flexibility in mind for Russia is very troubling indeed. So the comment here is that Russia is America's number one geopolitical foe, according to Mitt Romney, who wants to be the Republican choice for the next potential American president. But is he right? The Bible says he is. Russia does indeed protect and fight the causes for some of the world's most notorious nations. Iran, Syria, Cuba, China, Hamas, etc. According to Putin, the greatest geopolitical disaster of the 20th century was the breakup of the USSR. Russia wants to be a force to be reckoned with. Russia wants to be seen as a superpower taken seriously. Russia is indeed America's number one foe. And he quotes then from Ezekiel 38, verse 22 and 23, I will rain upon him as upon Gog, the Russian leader, and upon his bands, upon the many people that are with him, and overflowing rain, and great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord. This is the fate of Russia and the nations that will invade Israel. Russia is also a foe of God. Gordon?
It almost might indicate that Romney might be the next person.
Well, if we're in the right,
If there's
in the right time, yeah. Idris?
It's interesting to me that the French Revolution was the beginning of democracy, and it keeps coming up like a wave or an echo all through the nation.
The three frog spirits are one of them.
Yeah.
And it continues to be and will continue to be an echo until the fulfillment of all things. Gordon?
I think in this one, I think farther down, it's got one in Turkey. They seem to waffle back and forth between the Russian camp and the Western camp.
You've got several things about Russian troops arriving in Syria, and Turkey edges near it. That's what you're thinking about. Yeah. Events are pushing Turkey ever closer to setting up a buffer zone in Syria. They got a big meeting on right now with the Secretary of State Clinton about that very thing. And, anyway, the comment is, as Russia enters Syria, there is increased speculation that Turkey will also enter Syria. They will do so to set up a buffer zone. The pressure is growing on Turkey as more and more people stream over the border of Syria into Turkey to avoid the conflict. Meanwhile, Kofi Annan has demanded that the Syrian leadership begin a ceasefire immediately. The deadline is now, the spokesman said on Friday. Also, the UK has announced it is to double its non-military aid to opponents of President Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria. Russia has also announced that Assad would not find refuge in Moscow. The spark will surely ignite this woodpile, as the Bible predicts. Talks about the maker of it as a spark that shall both burn together and not shall quench them. Gordon?
It appears as though Russia sort of buddies up to these nations that are sort of rogue nations, if you like, for their own advantage. Like they're looking to kind of take advantage of the weakness that exists politically in these nations, so that they can keep their sphere of influence expanding, and yet they realize that it's also, they kind of play double, like saying right here that they're not really supporting Assad anymore, and yet why are they there? Why haven't they come out clearly and said you're wrong, you got to quit it? They're playing both sides for their own advantage.
Yeah, and and even Obama with his statement, I mean, he's a player too. It's hard to say where his mind really is. Gordon?
I found the advance of Turkey interesting because with Russian troops in Syria and Turkey moving in on Syria's northern border, Syria, I mean, Assad is going to look at that as an invasion. They're coming into his country with troops, and he's going to look at that as an invasion by Turkey. Russia's in there. It's going to have, Turkey's interest concentrated on their southern border. And we know that Russia has to come down through Turkey. And the door into Turkey for Russia is the northwestern corner of Turkey. So it's like, there's that opportunity. Mind you, Russia can go around Turkey if they want, but it says they come down through. So there's a little bit of opportunity opening up there for something to take place.
It was interesting too, the perception of the media on this meeting that's taking place there was that the U.S. and Britain are reluctant to take any real political or military activity in regards to this buffer zone or anything like that, or get involved in Syria militarily, whereas the Muslim nations around are really pushing for that, including Turkey. They want to do more. They want to get in there and do something. And it's the U.S. and Britain that are holding back on that.
I always thought Turkey is quite a base nation now. I mean, just like the end of the Ottoman Empire, like it's done.
They are, I think, on the world scene, but they figure pretty largely in this because they used to be great friends with Syria and with Assad and with the Syrian people. And so their influence here in this particular little skirmish is pretty large.
Well, they got common religious ties, right?
Yes. And I think a lot of the other nations around, like the Arab nations, see it also as a real blemish on their political world, what's happening in Syria right now.
Is it his place that is British?
And she's fired from Britain.
Yeah. It's an odd combination.
Anyway, I guess our time is gone for today.